fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The summons arrived etched onto a shard of obsidian, cool and impossibly smooth against Reese's palm. It wasn't a scroll, not a letter, something far more permanent. The black wax sealing it smelled of ozone, sharp and stinging, overlaid with a cloying sweetness like burnt sugar and something else, something ancient and unsettling. It wasn't delivered by a messenger, of course. In the realm of Ethelgard, debts weren't settled with polite correspondence. They were collected in person. And Reese's to Kaelin, the Shadow Lord, was substantial. A debt he'd foolishly believed settled with a single stolen night, a night spent lost with Liam, his life mate. God's Liam, just thinking his name sent a tremor through Reese, a bittersweet ache that had become a constant companion. That night it had been reckless, intoxicating, a desperate grasping for connection in a world determined to keep them apart. But Kaelin had witnessed it, had felt it somehow, and he'd become consumed. Not with desire, not exactly. It was something darker, more possessive. A hunger Liam didn't return, a need that twisted Kaelin's features into something predatory. And now that hunger threatened to unravel them both. The obsidian promised a fortune, enough gold to secure Liam's future, to buy land far from the Shadowlands, to build a sanctuary where Kaelin's influence couldn't reach. A place where they could simply be, but the price was Reese's complete surrender. A willing descent into Kaelin's estate, Viridian Hold, a fortress built on illusion and fueled by forbidden desires. A place where shadows danced and whispers held power. A place from which few ever returned unchanged, or at all. Reese found Liam in the conservatory, a haven of fragile beauty within their otherwise austere home. His back was to Reese, his hands gentle as he coaxed life from a cluster of night-blooming cereus. The air hung heavy with their intoxicating fragrance, a heady blend of jasmine and something subtly metallic. It was a fragile beauty, one that Reese couldn't help but feel was on the verge of shattering. As he approached, Liam sensed his presence and turned, a soft smile on his face. "Reese," he said, his voice low and soothing. "I was just thinking about you." Reese's heart skipped a beat at the sound of his name on Liam's lips. He felt a flutter in his chest, a sensation that was both exhilarating and terrifying. "I was thinking about you too," Reese replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Liam's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment they just stared at each other, the tension between them palpable. Then Liam's gaze dropped, and he turned back to the plants, his hands moving with a quiet precision. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice tinged with a hint of concern. Reese took a deep breath, the weight of the obsidian shard still clutched in his hand. "I received a summons from Kaelin," he said, the words feeling like a betrayal. Liam's hand stilled, and he turned to face Reese, his eyes narrowing. "What does he want?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Reese felt a shiver run down his spine as he met Liam's gaze. "He wants me to come to Viridian Hold," Reese said, the words feeling like a death sentence. Liam's face went pale, and he took a step back, as if the very thought of Kaelin's estate was enough to repel him. "No," he said, his voice firm, "you can't go." Reese felt a pang of guilt, knowing that he had no choice. The debt he owed Kaelin was too great, the price of his freedom too high. "I have to," he said, the words feeling like a lie. Liam's eyes flashed with anger, and he took a step forward, his hands clenched into fists. "You don't have to do anything," he said, his voice low and menacing. "We can leave, Reese, we can run." Reese felt a surge of hope at Liam's words, but it was quickly extinguished. They couldn't run, not from Kaelin. The Shadow Lord's reach was too long, his power too great. "We can't," Reese said, the words feeling like a defeat. Liam's face fell, and he turned away, his shoulders slumping in defeat. Reese felt a pang of sorrow, knowing that he was about to leave Liam behind to surrender to Kaelin's whims. He took a step forward, his hand reaching out to touch Liam's shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said, the words feeling like a whisper. Liam turned to face him, his eyes red-rimmed. "Don't go," he said, his voice cracking. Reese felt a lump form in his throat as he met Liam's gaze. He knew that he had to go, that he had no choice. But as he looked into Liam's eyes, he felt a spark of defiance ignite within him. He would go to Viridian Hold, but he would not go quietly. He would fight with every fiber of his being to protect Liam, to keep him safe from Kaelin's grasp. And as he stood there, the obsidian shard still clutched in his hand, Reese knew that he would stop at nothing to ensure their freedom, to keep their love alive, no matter the cost.